What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Didn't Ask podcast. As always, I'm your host, Djimon, and today I will be diving back into the world of Reddit to see what the people asked Reddit and didn't ask me. How's everybody doing? How are you doing? How are your loved ones doing? I hope everybody's doing well. I am feeling a vibe. I am feeling the hype. It rhymes. That was supposed to be the thing. The past weekend was very busy in a sense, but also very enjoyable. We had a UFC fight night, Derek Brunson versus Darren Till. It was awesome. It was one of the first fights I have seen live in a while. So that was fun because UFC made it more of a European card with the debut of Paddy the Baddy, with the rentrée of Meatball. It was so much fun to watch UFC live once again because it's been a while. Because of Corona, they have not been able to do shows basically anywhere outside the US. At the start of the pandemic, it was of course that they couldn't do any shows whatsoever. But now they're getting back into the groove. So it was fun to have a live UFC show. Now moving on to Sunday. And if you're an F1 fan, you know what big day it was. It was the return of the Formula One to Zandvoort. And man, what a spectacle that was. I am a Formula One lover, shall we say. Like, I am not the biggest of fans. I don't follow everything to the T. But, when it's on, I try to fucking catch some rounds here and there. Sometimes I watch a whole race just for enjoyment. And it was awesome to see the return of Zandvoort. Finally, we have a Dutch GP back after, I believe what they're saying is 36 years, something around that time. And with Max winning at his home crowd, it's fucking awesome. But that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about the questions asked by Reddit. So let's jump right into the first question for today. This one coming from the Ask Reddit subreddit. And they ask, if you could train any animal in the world to be your pet and protector, what would it be and why? So I am thinking about this because there are some obvious answers you can give. And an obvious answer is, of course, a bear. But the thing with those animals is that they're really big, so I have just no idea where to fucking store those fucking things. And other than that, is that this animal is now my pet, basically. So I need to feed that animal and I need to nourish that animal and, love that animal. And I don't know how I'm going to do that for a bear or a lion or a tiger or whatever. Because those motherfuckers eat a lot and they're so big that I don't really see any way for me to store one of those. So what I was thinking of is that I'm going to go smaller, but I want something that's kind of fierce too. But if I'm going to train the animal to be my pet, then I want the animal to be smart as well. So I immediately went to one of my favorite animals, if not the favorite animal of mine, and that would be a raccoon. And hear me out on this one. First off, a raccoon is, of course, a lot smaller than a lion or a bear. So it's a lot easier. It's basically a cat, or a medium-sized dog. So I can just have it in my house and there is no issue with that. I don't have to fucking have a ton of food because he can just eat fucking dog treats and stuff like that. 2, a raccoon is an intelligent animal, but also has thumbs. So they can pick things up and do stuff with that. So I can ask them to grab me some candy, some chocolate or whatever. That seems like a very smart idea. And also, raccoons are animals you don't really want to fuck with because they're pretty aggressive if you fuck with them. So they would attack your face and then try to grab your eyes. So I think that a raccoon is one of those animals that it's, especially for this question, asked by user equal dash astronaut dash 8681. If you could train an animal in the world to be your pet and protector, what would it be and why? It's just like a big animal is not going to fit in my lifestyle. That's just not going to happen. It's going to be way too expensive to care for the thing. It takes massive dumps, you name it. But a raccoon is, in my opinion, a good animal to be like a in betweener, as in the sense that it is smaller, it is smart, it has paws that it can use to its full extent. So it is multifunctional. So I think that that would be my answer to your question, equal dash astronaut dash 8681. If you could train any animal in the world to be your pet and protector, what would it be? It would be a raccoon, because I think the animal's the most multifunctional animal, apart from like monkeys and stuff like that. But once again, with the monkeys, you also have like the size issues. So I think a raccoon is the perfect balance for me, where it's a small animal but can still fuck you up if they really want to. So thank you for your question. Moving on to the second question of today. This one coming from user D-Dude3, and that is D with TE. 90s gamers of Reddit. What was a problem about it back then that modern gamers won't understand? This one is a little bit of an issue because technically I was born in the late 90s, but I feel like I got the tail end of that, and maybe even like there are some fun things that I experienced in the transition from the more analog to the digital age. But for me, one thing that modern gamers won't ever understand is backlighting. Back in the day, of course, we didn't have backlighting on our handhelds. So, for example, when you had a Game Boy, you had to have an extra light that basically shone on the screen so you were able to see what the fuck was going on. And also, one issue that modern gamers won't understand is a wired connection. And that was one of the funny things, that in school we were playing Pokemon as you do. But nowadays you can just trade your Pokemons. You can even do global trade centers in Pokemon, and you can just trade your Pokemon all over the world. There's no problem whatsoever. But back in the day, it was one of those things where you couldn't do that. You had to have the cables that connected one Game Boy or whatever. Yeah, I guess the only Game Boys really did that. Because when you got to the DS, they had a wireless connection. So yeah, so with the Game Boy, you had to have like the Game Boy cable. So I personally didn't have one, as far as I know, but a guy in my class did. So we used that, and then we traded some Pokemon back and forth. And that's one of those things that, again, nobody really understands, because if you didn't have the cable, you weren't able to trade Pokemon with each other. And that's one of the funny things about that, that we had such issues with stuff like that, that somebody had a fucking, I don't know, a Charizard, and I really wanted that Charizard, but I chose a Blastoise or something. Now you can just trade them. You can just go online. You can find a way to trade those Pokemon. But back in the day, you didn't. And if you were on a birthday party and somebody was like, "Oh, I just had this Charizard extra because I used the breeding whatever," and then I would be like, "Oh man, I want that," and then we didn't have a cable, then we would be fucked. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of those things. And again, the backlighting on the Game Boys were always an issue, because first off, there was no backlighting, so you had to use the light attachment. But the light attachment always shone in a specific way, so sometimes it would be too bright, and then you put it further away, and then there's a whole rigmarole, and then the glare and whatever. It was never perfect, but it worked, and it was fun growing up that way. So The Dude 3. 90s gamers of Reddit, what was a problem about it back then that modern gamers won't understand? And I would say, for me at least, as far as I have experienced, just the playing things together, it be trading Pokemon, or it be just battling against each other, playing against each other, was really hard because you needed a link cable, and that cable, it was quite expensive, especially when you were a kid. So you were always hoping that one of your friends had one, or one of your classmates. And other than that, I would say that the lighting was always an issue because there was no backlighting on your Game Boy, so you had to use a light in the room, or you had to use a light attachment, but those never really worked well. So thank you for your question, the Dude 3. Moving on to the third question of today. This one was asked by Mr. Floyd 16091411, and they ask, you are given $400 million to make a movie, but it has to bomb critically and financially, or else you will die. What would you make? This is a funny question because it's gonna be kinda hard, I guess, for it to bomb when you have such a big budget. But we can use the budget, and we can blow it on some other things. You know what I mean? We can use the budget mostly to do set pieces. And by set pieces, I mean we're gonna just blow shit up. And we're gonna put all those glorious millions of hours towards, millions of dollars towards, I should say. And with that, I also would like to hire Yui. I don't know what his name is. Is his name Yui Bull? Nay, it's not Yui Bull. I don't know. Maybe it is. It's at least that one guy that kept making video game movies, but they all kept bombing. And I don't know how he did it, but somehow he did. So I would probably do that, hire that guy, and then we'll pick a very old IP so that it is based on the game and we can use that as a tagline, but it's gonna be a very old game that nobody really fucking likes. It's gonna be like a Bubble Bubble movie, or you name it. I don't know. Just something that's very old and doesn't boom any excitement. And we're gonna just, again, blow the money on mostly special effects. And then we're not gonna hire any big actors. Or maybe we should. Huh. Because what I'm thinking is, this could be, even though I don't want to give them jobs, but this could be a fun movie to just get all the people that were cancelled and give them a part in this movie. I feel like that might be a smart idea because they're people that nobody really wants to see, right? So we can do Kevin Spacey, we give him a part, and then we give Chris D'Elia a part because fuck that guy. Um, and then somehow we're gonna produce it under the Miramax banner, even though I don't really think that Miramax has anything to do with Harvey Weinstein. But we're just trying to do everything in our ability to just make this movie as repulsive as possible. So I think that would be my answer to Mr. Floyd's 16091411. If you are given $400 million to make a movie, but it has to bomb critically and financially, or else you will die, what would you make? I would make a video game movie based on a very old IP so that nobody really knows what it is, and we can use the tagline that it's based on a video game because that in of itself will already bring the hype down a little bit. I will spend so much money on special effects, and mostly not special effect, but like mostly explosions and stuff like that, where things just explode for no reason. And I would hire cancelled actors and or comedians to play parts in this, so that this movie will just be basically trash from the beginning that nobody really wants to see. So I can keep living. I do have to live with myself knowing that I made this movie, But hey, it is what it is. Thank you for your question, Mr. Floyd. Going further with the fourth question of today. This one was asked by user legit underscore muffins, and they said, what would a terrifying fact be if Pokemon were real? And we're going back to Pokemon. I just mentioned Pokemon about the trading and stuff like that, but now Pokemon are real. And what is a terrifying fact about that? And for me, I would say that Pokemon are scary in the sense that they control the elements in a sense. And that is something that's really dangerous to begin with. Because think about a Cyndaquil. It's basically a hedgehog, but instead of having needles, it has fire on its back. I'm not gonna have that fucking running around in my house. My house will fucking burn down the fucking minute I bring that thing in here. That's just absolutely outrageous. And then think about all the Pokemon fights that are just going on and everybody's fine with. Where we're training 10-year-olds to fuck other people up, or at least their Pokemon up. That's fucking weird. That's an interesting, weird, terrifying fact, I guess. Other than that, yeah, there are just many abuse issues in the world of Pokemon that, because it's a kid show, are not really shown, which is of course good. But in another way, it's one of those things where, how do I put this? There are so many weird things because there are, of course, psychic Pokemon, and they could theoretically speak and control your whole life. They can just mind control you and let you do whatever the fuck you want. And I'm seeing somebody here in the comments named star 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 42, and they said, "Old man with Jigglypuffs hanging around sororities," and that is a fucking horrifying fact because, of course, if you know Pokemon, Jigglypuff is a Pokemon that sings, and her sweet tones make you fall asleep. Or their tones. Is Jigglypuff only female? I'm assuming that there must be male counterparts to Jigglypuff. Anyway, so yeah, so Jigglypuff, they sing, and their soothing tones make you fall asleep. And having old men with Jigglypuffs hanging around sororities, that's just absolutely outrageous because, of course, they let the Jigglypuff sing. The students will fall asleep and the old men can do whatever the fuck they want. So that is a horrifying fact. So, yeah, going back to the question asked by legit underscore muffins, what would a terrifying fact be if Pokemon were real? And for me, that would just be the fact that there is basically a fucking flamethrower next to you at all times. If you have like a Cyndaquil or a Charizard or Charmeleon or whatever, because they all have legit open flames on their bodies. And then, of course, you have the abuse issues in the grand scheme of things, where you have, of course, the kids using the Pokemon to do Pokemon battles, which that is abusive, but also just the power abuse where you can have a psychic Pokemon mind control a person and let them do whatever you want, and or have a Jigglypuff sing to a sorority and then abusing your powers that way. So the world of Pokemon is a lot darker than we think it is. Thank you for your question, Legit Muffins. Going into the fifth and final question of the Ask Reddit subreddit. This one was asked by user dash pistol dash whip, and that's with 3 M's. What attractions would be in an amusement park? I had to get my words straight in there, but an amusement park is a very interesting one. So my first thought when I saw this question immediately went to the snail mobile. So it's just you doing small circles, I guess, as a snail, but it just actually goes snail pace. So it's taking you a fucking 15 hours to make a small turn. That would be one of the things I was thinking about, like a bumper card situation, but then every time the bumper card hits somebody else, the card just falls apart on both sides. So you can just go ding and then it just falls apart. Ding, falls apart. And then somebody has to manually fix that shit up. I think that that would be very unamusing for the whole park as a whole. This is not necessarily an attraction, but I want heat lamps all around the park so that you're basically feeling like you're in like a terrarium, like you're a fucking turtle on a fucking rock or something, where it's just like you're boiling up. Even though it might be just a normal temperature, I want the heat lights on and everybody needs to be boiling hot. A lot of motherfuckers are gonna faint, me probably too as well, but who gives a crap? We're just gonna do that because we need to make this park unamusing. And then I want something to do with the food. The food cannot be fast food, and instead of that, it's just gonna be grains. So it's just gonna be, for some people it's not the worst, but it's just gonna be like muscly and fucking, I don't know, fucking cold oatmeals and shit like that. And maybe we're gonna put sprinkle some insects in there too. And again, some people would find this interesting, but you know, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think you really want that shit when you go to an amusement park. So, user, dash pistol dash whip, what attractions would be in an unamusement park? And for me, that would be the snail circle. So you're on a snail and it goes at actual snail pace. So really fucking slow around the circle. It would be the fucking non-bumper bumper carts. So every time you hit something, your car just falls apart, which means that you have to manually put everything back together. I would put heat lamps all over the park so everybody's burning up constantly. And then for food, I would say no fast food, but only grain-based products. Not necessarily grain-based product, and not even that. Just grains. Like so oats and grains and stuff like that. Basically feed people like they're horses, and then get some fucking insect over there as well. So I hope that answers your question, Pistol Whip. And now, moving on to the final question of today, and this one was asked by user Sinaken, I guess. Of course, asked on the Am I the Asshole subreddit. And they ask, Am I the asshole for not showing up for a dinner with my sister when I found out she was planning to set me up? Woo! I, 34 male, am a single dad of two amazing kids, my 18-year-old son and my 14-year-old daughter. 14 years ago, my fiance and the mother of my child died suddenly, and it destroyed me. She was everything. We were supposed to grow old together, raise our babies together, share a life. She was my best friend of 15 years and my love for 6. After she died, my family expected me to date again, find love, marry someone, and find another mother for my kids. But I've never had any interest in meeting someone else. I focus on being a good dad and enjoying my life the best that I can. But I never wanted to move on, and I don't feel like that's something that will ever happen for me. About 2 years after my fiance died, though, my sister started getting pushier. She told me I needed to find someone who could make me happy, that I deserved better than staying single for the rest of my life. I told her it's my choice, and if that's what feels right to me, then it's what I'll do. For the most part, she lets it go once I say no, but she brings it up often enough that it has affected our relationship. 2 years ago, we stopped talking for months after she brought my kids into this plot to set me up and was disappointed they didn't want to take part in it. When I found out, I was furious. I thought that was the last of it when we reconciled because she saw I was willing to not speak to her and her apology was the most genuine I've ever had. Then last week she told me she wanted to hang out. We were supposed to go to dinner in her favorite place. But a few days before I found out she was actually trying to set me up with this woman she knows. Once I found out, I just refused to show up. The dinner was Thursday, and yesterday she was furious that I hadn't shown up. She said they had been waiting for me. I asked who they were. She said she had brought someone along for me to meet. I told her I no longer trusted her after this. My parents sent me a message last night that it was rude to be a no-show, and I should understand they just worry I am putting my life on hold and denying myself happiness. Am I the asshole? And user Sinaken. Sinaken? You are definitely not the asshole. You have clearly said multiple times that you are not ready for this further step in your life right now, and maybe will never be. So, your sister pushing you constantly can be a hurtful thing to you because you clearly are dealing with the loss of your wife, and are dealing with the repercussions of that. That being said, I kind of do agree in the sense that you cannot keep hanging on in the past, and this sounds fucking hard, and it sounds maybe a little bit rude, especially coming from a stranger. But again, if you want something in your life, then you should try and go for that. And right now, you are not willing to. But maybe, hopefully, for you, there comes a time where you feel comfortable to date again. But clearly, in this situation, you're not the asshole. You have said to your sister multiple times that you are not interested in anything right now, and her setting you up this way is very hurtful, and I can see that and understand that. So, Sineken, am I the asshole for not showing up for a dinner with my sister when I found out she was planning to set me up? No, you're clearly not. You have said up front, I don't want this. Maybe you should have just said to your sister, like, hey, I can't come. I just don't want to. So she at least knows that you're not coming, because it sounds like you just didn't show up at all without saying anything. So maybe that would have been a smart thing, to just give yourself a little bit more space. But you're clearly not the asshole for not wanting to go on a date that you didn't even set up. So thank you for your question, Sinaken. And that was it for this week's episode of the Didn't Ask podcast. Episode 26. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a rating on Apple Podcast, because that will help the show grow. And of course, like I say every week, if you do leave a review, I will read your review on the next episode. That being said, if you want to listen to older episodes of this podcast, please go find them on your favorite podcast service around the globe. You can just search for the Didn't Ask podcast, and you should be able to find that one over there. You can also find this podcast on anchor.fm/didn't-ask-pod. And over there, you're also able to ask your own question. If you go to the website, that website will be in the show description. There is a button for you to press, and if you press that button, you get the ability to record a question for me to answer. If you do that, I can play your message on the podcast and then answer your question after that. If you don't want your voice to be heard on the podcast, I can certainly understand that. Just say that up front, and I'll just read the message out myself and then still answer your question as you wanted to. Well, I think that's gonna be it for me for this week. I'll be back next week, and if you want to know what I'm watching in the meantime, you can visit Tracked.tv. That link will also be in the show description. That's gonna be it for me. I'll see you back next time. Goodbye.